The world is on edge, gripped by a sense of uncertainty that hasn't been felt in years. From bustling city centers to quiet rural towns, people everywhere are glued to their screens, anxiously following every new development. Tensions between the United States and Iran have reached a boiling point, with both sides trading threats and warnings. The Persian Gulf is once again a flashpoint, as military forces maneuver and the world holds its breath. President Trump has reignited the crisis, with a blunt warning referencing last year's military strikes. "Last time I blew them up." His words, delivered with characteristic bravado, have sent shockwaves through both Washington and Tehran. This wasn't a slip, it was a calculated message to Tehran, a reminder of America's military might and Trump's willingness to use it. Behind closed doors, his advisors weigh the risks and potential fallout of escalating the conflict. Trump's words echo through diplomatic circles, sparking urgent meetings at the United Nations and frantic calls between world leaders. Allies and rivals alike are scrambling to interpret his intentions and prepare for what might come next. Meanwhile, in the streets of Iran, anti-government protests have exploded into a revolutionary movement. Demonstrators, emboldened by international attention, are risking everything to demand change. The Iranian regime faces its greatest challenge in decades, as millions demand the end of clerical rule. The government's response has been swift and often brutal, but the people's resolve only seems to grow stronger. Trump has positioned himself as a champion of the protesters, promising that help is on its way. His administration has ramped up rhetoric and support, hoping to tip the balance in favor of the demonstrators. By invoking the 2025 conflict, he draws a clear line. Further crackdowns will have consequences. The memory of past confrontations lingers, and the threat of renewed violence hangs over the region. The world is left to wonder, are these words a bluff, or a prelude to devastating action? Analysts debate the possibilities, while ordinary people worry about what tomorrow might bring. The stakes are enormous, with the potential for another Middle East conflict looming. The consequences could be catastrophic, not just for the region, but for the entire world. The White House is signaling all options are on the table. Behind the scenes, officials are preparing for every scenario, from diplomatic breakthroughs to military intervention. The world watches, uncertain and anxious, as history teeters on the edge of a new and dangerous chapter. Iran's protests erupted from years of frustration, economic collapse, and a deep sense of injustice. For many Iranians, daily life has become a struggle, with basic necessities growing more expensive and opportunities vanishing. The sense of despair has only deepened, as hopes for reform have faded. The currency has crashed, inflation is rampant, and unemployment is at crisis levels. Families watch their savings evaporate as the rial loses value, and young people see little future in a country where jobs are scarce and prices soar higher every day. What began as anger over bread and jobs has become a nationwide call to end the clerical regime. The protests have grown beyond economic grievances, transforming into a powerful movement demanding fundamental change. Chants of "death to the dictator" unite Iranians across backgrounds. Students, workers, women, and even retirees are joining together, their voices echoing through the streets in a rare show of unity. This is the largest anti-government movement since the 1979 revolution. The sheer scale and persistence of the demonstrations have stunned both the authorities and the world. The fall of Assad's regime in Syria last year has inspired hope for change. Many Iranians see the possibility of a new future, drawing strength from the struggles and victories of their neighbors. Protesters now demand freedom, democracy, and a government that serves its people. Their demands are clear: an end to repression, respect for human rights, and a voice in their own future. The regime's legitimacy is shattered, its authority openly defied. Images of leaders are torn down, and government symbols are defaced as a sign of growing resistance. The movement is revolutionary, not reformist. People are no longer asking for small changes, they want a complete transformation of their society. The government faces a stark choice: concede to the people's demands or escalate violence in a desperate attempt to hold on to power. The people are no longer afraid. Their courage grows with every confrontation, and their determination is unwavering. The chasm between rulers and ruled has never been wider. The contrast between the lives of government elites and ordinary citizens is now impossible to ignore. Iran stands at a crossroads, with its people determined to shape their own destiny, no matter the cost. President Trump has broken with decades of U.S. foreign policy tradition, abandoning the careful language of diplomacy in favor of a direct, confrontational approach. Instead of relying on back-channel negotiations or official statements, he's taken to social media, speaking directly to the Iranian people in their own language, bypassing both governments and traditional media. Trump has openly encouraged Iranian protesters, urging them to take over your institutions and challenge the regime's authority. He's gone further, promising help is on its way, a message that has electrified some demonstrators and alarmed Iranian officials. By refusing to clarify what that help might mean, Trump keeps Tehran on edge, leaving open the possibility of military intervention or other forms of support. He's issued stark warnings, threatening very strong action if the Iranian government executes protesters, raising the stakes for both sides. In response, the Trump administration has frozen diplomatic talks with Iran, signaling a hard break from previous engagement efforts. U.S. officials are now compiling lists of Iranian authorities involved in the crackdown, preparing new rounds of targeted sanctions and international pressure. Trump has even called on Iranians to save the names of those responsible for abuses, hinting at future accountability and justice for victims. This is unprecedented. Never before has an American president so openly encouraged regime change in Iran. Supporters hail Trump's approach as bold and necessary, but critics warn that such rhetoric and actions could dangerously escalate tensions, risking a wider regional conflict or even war. Around the world, Trump's intervention has transformed what began as a domestic uprising into a global flashpoint, drawing in international attention and concern. The stakes for both Iran and the international community have never been higher, as world leaders scramble to respond to the rapidly evolving crisis. The United States is no longer just a bystander. It has become a central player in Iran's internal struggle. The dynamic of the conflict has fundamentally changed, with new risks and possibilities emerging every day. As the world watches anxiously, the next chapter in this high-stakes confrontation is about to unfold. Iran's streets are scenes of brutality as the regime cracks down on protesters. Security forces use live ammunition, turning demonstrations into bloodbaths. Over 2,000 have been killed, most of them protesters. The government blames terrorists, but eyewitnesses tell of indiscriminate violence. Nearly 17,000 have been detained. Reports of torture and executions are mounting. Hospitals are raided, and even the wounded are at risk. The regime aims to erase all opposition, instilling terror. The case of Irfan Soltani, a protester set for public execution, has become a rallying point. Trump has warned that such acts will trigger severe U.S. response. Despite the horror, protesters' resolve only hardens. For Iranians, there is no turning back. Trump has unleashed sweeping new sanctions, targeting any country that trades with Iran. A 25% tariff now threatens Iran's economic lifeline, its oil exports. China, Turkey, Iraq, and India face a stark choice trade with the US or Iran. The goal is to bankrupt the regime, but ordinary Iranians will suffer most. China has condemned the move, and global energy prices could spike. The sanctions escalate US-China tensions and destabilize global markets. Inside Iran, economic pain deepens, fueling unrest. The administration bets this pressure will break the regime. It's a high-risk gamble with global consequences. The Iranian regime has imposed a near-total internet blackout to stifle dissent, but Starlink, Elon Musk's satellite internet, is breaking the blockade. Activists use Starlink terminals to share real-time footage and organize protests. The regime fights back, jamming signals and confiscating dishes. Possessing a Starlink terminal is now an act of rebellion. This digital battle is crucial. Technology is sustaining the movement and exposing abuses. Starlink's intervention empowers protesters and undermines the regime's information monopoly. Every video broadcast chips away at the government's credibility. The world sees the truth, fueling international pressure. In the darkness, Starlink is a beacon of hope. The fight for information is as fierce as the fight on the streets. The Iranian regime blames the US and Israel for the unrest, calling it a foreign plot. At the UN, Iran accuses Trump of inciting violence and regime change. State media brands protesters as traitors, justifying the crackdown as national defense. Iran warns, if attacked, It will strike US bases and Israel. The threat is real. Iran's missile arsenal and proxies could ignite a regional war. The regime invokes the failed 2025 war to project strength. This defiance is aimed at rallying hardliners and intimidating protesters. The world faces the terrifying prospect of a wider conflict. The Iran crisis has split the world. The EU condemns the violence and sanctions Iran's Revolutionary Guard. Germany predicts the regime's imminent collapse. Russia and China back Tehran, warning against US intervention and criticizing new tariffs. The crisis is now a front in the great power rivalry. Israel urges quiet support for regime change, while the US warns citizens to leave Iran. The Middle East is on a knife's edge. Any escalation could destabilize the region. The outcome will reshape the Middle East and impact millions. Revolution could bring hope. War could bring catastrophe. The world is divided, anxious and watching as Iran's fate hangs in the balance. The stakes could not be higher.